The days of OnePlus being the flagship killer are long in the past, but this phone might be worthy of bringing that label back. Because, spoiler alert, the new OnePlus 13 is nearly perfect, but it does have a few quirks. It's been over 4 years since I've owned a OnePlus device because quite honestly, they've gotten kind of boring and I haven't really found a reason to choose them over the competition. But this year is a bit different because the OnePlus 13 is the newest flagship from OnePlus and is the first flagship to debut from any major brand in 2025. And if you haven't noticed by now, this phone launched with a ton of hype and a ton of praise. So is it really as good as people say? Now, as an art director and photographer, I was really curious to see how the Hasselblad collaboration has improved over the past 4 years. I did review the OnePlus 9 Pro, which was the first phone with this collaboration, and it was a step in the right direction in terms of color accuracy and color science. And I'm really curious to see how this camera system holds up. So a good portion of this video will be dedicated to the image quality, and we'll even dive into Lightroom to pixel peep at some photos. And full disclosure, I bought this phone with my own money to test out and review. So that's why this video may be a bit late compared to other influencers who have had their review units for weeks now. But this is my unbiased, honest opinions about this device. So give this video a thumbs up if you want to support that. And also, there was a recent camera update that was said to improve the image quality that those early reviewers might not have gotten. So all of the footage and images taken throughout this video were from after that update. Oh, and if I sound a bit sick in this video, I sincerely apologize because I'm still getting over a cold. But I wanted to create this and put it out there because I know this device is new, and if you're thinking about buying it, I hope this video can help inform your decision. With that being said, let's just get right into it. Starting off with the build quality. The phone honestly just feels okay. The build is slim and light, both of which are impressive given the 6000 mAh battery. The back glass has this black wood grain effect, and while it looks pretty cool, it feels plasticky and a bit cheap. The way that they apply this coating makes it extremely slippery and offers no grip. Of course, this is just personal preference and not to my style, and a lot of this is basically a non-issue if you just use a case. Keep in mind the different colors have different textures on the back, so I can only speak to my unit. The focal point on the back is this massive camera cluster on the top left of the device. It protrudes a fair bit, and again, it isn't the most aesthetically pleasing to my eye. I prefer the camera bars of the Pixels or the more industrial style of the S24, but it's the lenses and sensors housed within the circle that matters, and we'll definitely get more into that later. The rails around the device are a matte aluminum, but yet again, they do feel a bit plasticky, and the fit is not perfect. It's hard to describe, but there's an edge where the rails meet the back of the device. It doesn't blend together smoothly, so you definitely feel that sharp edge when you hold it. Compared to other devices, the major difference in the screen and the build quality comes down to the IP68 and IP69 ratings. OnePlus is definitely not skimping on certifications this time around. You've probably seen all of the videos of YouTubers putting their phones in the dishwasher or the washing machine. Now, I'm not going to do that with my own unit, but it does provide peace of mind for durability in the long run. And if you do happen to get this device a bit wet, the AquaTouch 2.0 helps improve screen responsiveness when there's water on the screen. And yeah, it sounds kind of dumb and sounds kind of like a gimmick, but honestly, it works so well that I wished every device had this. So if you live in humid environments or like to use your phone in the shower, this is really a game changer. Speaking of the screen, it's big, bright, and beautiful. It is pretty well integrated into the frame and has slightly curved glass at the edges. This allows for smooth edge gestures and make the device feel a bit smaller. The screen is definitely on par with other flagships. At 4500 nits peak brightness, it's even brighter than the Pixel 9 Pro and the S24 Ultra. But honestly, in real-world use, it does seem that the Pixel 9 Pro still gets a bit brighter. I'll start off this camera segment with some POV footage to show you guys how this phone performs in real-life shooting conditions. Then we can dive into Lightroom to pixel peep at some photos taken in the studio with a controlled environment to really see the camera quality on this device. For today's photo walk, I'm headed over to Brooklyn Chinatown, located along 8th Ave in Sunset Park. The area offers tons of great food, from restaurants to bakeries and street stalls. There's definitely something for everyone at various price points. There are also numerous markets selling fresh produce and seafood. And since it's close to Chinese New Year, the streets are adorned with red and gold, and many shops are selling red envelopes and other decorations. I'm starting off this photo walk close to sunset, so there is some nice warm light hitting the streets, and these kinds of lighting conditions could be challenging for a phone to capture, so let's see how it does. As I cross the street, I notice a few stalls and food vendors set up on the sidewalk. This table with red envelopes and Chinese New Year decorations caught my eye. I used the ultra wide here to capture a more dramatic angle, and at first glance, the photo looks sharp and detailed. However, the red colors lean a bit too magenta, but overall, it's nothing terrible. I turn to my left and use the wide-angle lens to take a quick snap of these two making some street food. The colors look a bit better here, but overall the image is looking a bit flat. Then I tried using the 3x telephoto to capture a close-up detail shot, and this one looks pretty good. The fruit stand caught my eye, and I thought the colored umbrellas and the guy in the red jacket was a great way to test out the color reproduction. Overall, the photo looks pretty good, with vibrant colors and decent contrast. I think most people would really like this look, but to me, the colors are a bit oversaturated, especially the reds. I wanted to try out the Pro controls in master mode, so I walked back to the street food cart and manually adjusted the shutter speed and ISO so I could capture the movement of the steam. This is the JPEG export from the RAW file, and you can tell it looks pretty gray and boring, but that's exactly what you want from a RAW file, and this is how it looks with a filmic edit in Lightroom. Across the street, I liked how this corner store looked with the yellow awning and red decorations. I used the ultra wide here and quite liked the way this photo came out. The colors and contrast both look good. You can see slight smearing of details at the extreme edges, like on the green box to the left. I took another shot with the 1x camera from the same spot, and while the colors do look a bit too saturated, I like the tones and I prefer this look compared to the ultra wide. Lastly, I saw this woman walking out with a bunch of boxes, and I quickly turned around and snapped a few shots. There's no shutter lag and you're able to swap lenses quickly. This image looked pretty good, but it just felt a bit flat. So after a quick edit, this is closer to how I would like the image to look. Now at this point, the sun is really starting to set, and I'm not sure if it's due to the mix of low light in the foreground and the bright sky in the background, but for this next shot, the HDR processing went into overdrive. All the shadows are way too lifted and the colors are boosted. This is definitely not the kind of photo that I was expecting. I wanted to try again and compare the auto mode versus the master mode. So here is a second shot taken with the ultra wide, and the processing looks a bit more natural, but still not great. Lastly, I went into master mode, and here's the side by side with the raw file. You can see master mode has the most natural color reproduction and the least amount of processing. Moving on, I saw these two workers at the seafood market and they were moving around boxes of shrimp. The phone was able to freeze the motion, and I quite liked the color throughout the frame. As I was crossing the street, I noticed someone peeling what looks to be sugarcane, so I turned around and snapped this shot with the 3x telephoto. Although not as long as the 5x found on other flagship phones, the 3x focal length is definitely growing on me. I wanted to further test out this telephoto camera, so I took a picture of the shop across the street. Details are clear and the color looks good. Then I used 6x to take a picture of the same shop, and while you can tell that some details are looking a little bit soft, it doesn't look terrible. At least the processing doesn't look overdone. At this next corner, I saw this guy selling crabs and quickly snapped some shots. Once again, that 3x telephoto is a really versatile focal length, and it's great for these type of shots. As I got closer, I swapped to the 2x lens, and here's a side-by-side so you can see the difference in perspective and framing. For Chinese New Year, there are also lots of flower stalls, so I took a couple of photos. Once again, you can see that inconsistent, crazy HDR processing. And if you're ever in this area, stop by Xinfa Bakery for a quick snack. They are famous for their egg tarts, but they also serve other baked goods and coffees. Although the raw file looks more natural, I think the auto mode here works better for food shots. And for the last capture of the photo walk, I saw these two people standing in front of this roast meat restaurant, and I snapped this photo using master mode. I love the contrast in the shot and how the people are silhouetted against the background. Alright, now let's dive into Lightroom to pixel peep at some of these photos. And please keep in mind, this test is not foolproof and is not super scientific, but I just want to show you guys some of these results and point out a few different things. Starting off with the ultra wide camera, this is a JPEG file and you can see it looks pretty good. Details are clear and the colors are vibrant. Going into the corners, you can see that there's not really too much distortion either. Moving into the main camera, once again, this JPEG looks pretty good. There is slight ghosting going on, but it's really not that noticeable. Moving into the 2x crop from the main sensor, you can start to see a little bit of softness. The text isn't as crisp as the 1x, but again, for a 2x crop, it's not terrible. Now this is a 3x telephoto and I was really surprised by these results. All of the text is crisp and clear. There's minimal distortion throughout the frame and all of the colors look great as well. And lastly, going into the 6x crop of the telephoto camera, you can once again start to see some of that softness. This kind of softness is to be expected from a digital zoom, which is why I always hope that manufacturers are able to give us optical zooms when possible. Now moving into the raw files are where things start getting interesting. These are taken with the master mode and you can see from the ultra wide there's a significant amount of distortion going on. In the raw file, this is uncorrected because this is straight out of the camera. But if you were to shoot JPEG, then you wouldn't see this much distortion. I really wish we had the option to shoot both JPEG and RAW because I know not everyone wants to process every single RAW file. Now we're looking at a RAW file from the main sensor and zooming into the center, it looks okay. But again, it doesn't look as sharp as I would like. But you can see once we go into the 2x crop, things really start going downhill. Zooming into the center, everything looks blurry. It almost looks like it's out of focus. Now here's a side-by-side between the 2x JPEG on the left and the 2x RAW on the right. You can see a significant difference in the level of detail. So I assume that this processing is not applied to the RAW file. So the takeaway from this is that if you want to shoot with that 2x lens, definitely stick to JPEGs. And the same thing can be said about the 6x crop because it's also a digital zoom. If you look at these images, it doesn't look like the processing is being applied to the RAW file either. And lastly, taking a look at the RAW file from the 3x camera, I'm once again really surprised by how good this looks. All the text and details are crisp throughout the frame. I really wish the main camera was as good as the telephoto. And for those people saying that the telephoto is not that good this year, I think this proves them wrong. Now, doing these studio shots with the pixel peeping in Lightroom is a new segment that I'm trying out in my review videos. So let me know what you guys think and if you like this format. Or if you have other suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you know OnePlus, then you know that they're all about performance, and this phone follows suit. Powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite and 16GB of RAM, it runs circles around last year's flagships. I'm not sure how they managed to make this device feel even faster, but they did. Animations are smooth and there hasn't been any lag. We will have to see how it holds up over time, but so far there hasn't been any issues with the performance. And with the improved performance of the new SoC also comes improved efficiency. Battery life with the Oneplus13 has been great. I can easily get 7 to 10 hours of screen on time depending on the use case, and sometimes it can last well into the second day. However, I don't think I've ever managed to last 2 full days with this device. Topping it off in the middle of the day is a non-issue, however, because it charges extremely fast. Here in the US, you get a 80-watt SuperVOOC charger in the box, which is greatly appreciated. With this charger, you're able to bring the phone up to 100% in under an hour. I just wish that they had improved their wireless charging and added the magnetic ring to the device instead of the cases for Qi 2. But maybe that's something we can look forward to next year. Oxygen OS has been refined and optimized and strikes that sweet spot. It's not as minimal as the Pixel OS and not as feature-packed as Samsung's One UI. Oxygen 15 has a good amount of personalization without feeling too bloated. Honestly, it provides all of the essentials with a little bit of OnePlus charm. There are a handful of really useful features, like the smart sidebar, which is similar to Samsung's Edge panels. You can open apps in floating windows or have 2 or more apps for multitasking. And speaking of multitasking, this phone comes with OnePlus's Open Canvas, which is their own unique take at multitasking. You are able to navigate easily between multiple apps, and it enables cross-app features like sending photos from one app to another. You can even run a floating window on top of 2 side-by-side windows for even more multitasking. The speedy processor and tons of RAM are able to handle this multitasking without issue. I just wished the screen was a bit bigger, but that's why I'm really looking forward to the OnePlus Open 2. While there are a few AI features within this device, it's not jammed into every app, and it's definitely not a highlight. This is kind of refreshing coming from the Pixel, where there's nearly AI in everything. Personally, my most used are still Gemini as well as Circle to search. But I know AI is getting a ton of hype, and if that's something that you're interested in, maybe consider other options. Overall, I really enjoyed the OnePlus 13 and can highly recommend it. The entire package is uniquely and undoubtedly OnePlus, from the hardware to the software. There is something special about this phone and holding it and using it, and it brings me back to using the OG flagship killer. And maybe that's why there's so much hype around this device, because it hits at nostalgia but also being futuristic at the same time. It's much more refined, but doesn't take itself too seriously. And of course, all the phone features work well. The modem is strong and there's no connectivity issues. The haptics and speakers are also top-notch and on par with other flagships. As you can tell from this video, there are very few flaws with this device, and whatever shortcomings there are can easily be overlooked due to its price tag. Currently at $899 USD, with an additional $150 off for any trade-in, it undercuts new flagships like the S25 Ultra by at least $400. And it's even cheaper than last year's flagships like the Pixel 9 Pro XL. So while the OnePlus 13 is by no means cheap, I think the value proposition is extremely strong. And for those who are tired of Google or Samsung, I think this phone is a really amazing choice. So let me know your thoughts about this device. Are you thinking about getting it? Or if you already own it, how has your experience been so far? I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, so please drop them in the comments below. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to support me. Again, I bought this phone with my own money to try and stay as unbiased as possible. I love tech and love making these videos, so a little bit of support goes a long way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.